Welcome to the Conscious Classroom podcast, where we're exploring tools and perspectives that support educators and anyone who works with teams to create more conscious, supportive, and enriching learning environments. I'm your host, Amy Edelstein, and I'll be sharing transformative insights and easy-to-implement classroom supports that are all drawn from mindful awareness and systems thinking. The themes we'll discuss are designed to improve your own joy and fulfillment in your work and increase your impact on the world we share. Let's get on with this next episode. Hello, welcome to the Conscious Classroom. My name is Amy Edelstein. I'm your host. Today we're going to talk about the power of purpose and how mindfulness supports purpose in young people. We're not really taught how to define purpose and meaning in life when we're in school. And especially in recent times, students have been encouraged to cultivate skills and aptitudes to do well on standardized tests, to get into elite magnet high schools, elite colleges, and elite professions. They're taught not to think creatively necessarily, but to accomplish skills. When we're taught to accomplish skills, we are able to perform well in certain professions. But when we're taught to accomplish skills towards a greater end, a greater purpose, a purpose that's intangible, that has meaning, that has significance beyond our own ephemeral happiness or momentary happiness, that education, that definition of skills towards a greater end can bring both tremendous resilience, an ability to withstand challenge, and also greater happiness, a sense that life is directed. We're on a path, we're on a trajectory. In Viktor Frankl's seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, he spoke about his experience in the Nazi concentration camp and how, as horrible as the circumstances were, he could work with what he could control, was his own sense of meaning and purpose. And as he looked around him, he saw that those individuals who were able to persevere were those who had a sense of meaning and purpose that guided them. In that book, I quote him, he said, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." Now that takes an exalted sense of purpose and self and vision to be able to say that under such extreme circumstances. And you see that similarly among Tibetan meditation teachers, Tibetan Buddhist masters who were imprisoned in Chinese work camps and tortured and humiliated, who emerged with a sense of compassion for their captors and a sense that their suffering was part of their practice, was part of being able to generate a profound level of compassion for the delusion and ignorance of those people who thought that torture and inflicting suffering was what they were supposed to do. And those individuals who emerged from that recent crisis are great examples, as are other individuals, Nelson Mandela, who suffered again in horrific circumstances, imprisoned on Robben Island for 27 years, and emerged with a noble sense of purpose. Purpose can be defined for youth by culture, by religion, by familial expectations. And as we see in our contemporary culture where so many different things are demanding our attention, where we're told that our next vacation is going to bring us happiness, where we're told that our new car is going to bring us happiness, where we're told that as a youth that the right clothes, the right dance moves, the right peer group, and sadly in many inner city impoverished communities, we're told that violence will bring happiness through belonging in a gang, through proving one's manhood, through or womanhood, as we're seeing girls increasingly getting involved in gun violence. Now, how do we shift that? How do we shift that lack of meaningful purpose and cultivate that sense of a direction? What I do with the Inner Strength program and with the teen mindfulness exercises is to really work with that sense of letting go, that sense of being able to be intimate with oneself, to be able to be still in oneself, to be able to sit focusing on the backdrop of awareness, or using sensation in the body, or using the breath, or working with a thought bubble, to cultivate that sense of self-awareness and that awareness of an inner world that's not bounded by our beliefs or by our external circumstance. No matter what, we are aware of our experience. That experience may be good, that experience may be bad, but our awareness is broad enough to hold it all because we are aware of it. And when we start focusing on that quality of awareness and being able to hold everything, we are able to find a context where we're not completely overwhelmed or pushed by externals. So simply allowing our students regularly, daily, to sit in a practice of guided contemplation, where they reflect on their inner experience, they think about who they are, they reflect on what makes them unique and creative individuals, puts them in touch with a sense of purpose. And as they develop that sense of purpose, and as they start experiencing their own uniqueness and their own capacity, their own potential, their own ability to care and forgive and love and respect, they start to appreciate that they can create meaning in their own lives, in their small circles, family, or friends whom they care about. And they can create a sense of fulfillment out of cultivating those qualities that make them a good person, that bring them the qualities that they respect. And it gives them a sense that they can choose to care about those in their neighborhood and their circles, and not necessarily follow all of the actions that they may be pushed into taking, whether it's bullying online, excluding a friend, or other more harmful activities. And through that, they can also start developing their sense of selfhood and direction. Who do they want to be when they're older? What do they care about? What do they want to express? We don't want to push our young people into feeling overburdened by a need to quote unquote save the world from the problems they're inheriting from the older generations, but to connect with a purpose that draws them towards something positive. They're going to have a loving family. They're going to be good providers. They're going to be creative inventors. They're going to be successful accountants, teachers, doctors, nurses. They're going to be reliable friends and respected in their community and trusted and steady and caring, just like the role models that they care about. Using mindfulness activities to cultivate that type of self-reflection, getting students to write about them, write about what they care about, write about where they feel care in their bodies. Draw it in an outline, a silhouette. Where do they feel joy? Where do they feel connection? Where do they feel excitement? Where do they feel goals? Where do they feel push to reach beyond themselves? Where do they feel success? Where do they feel attainment? It turns their attention from getting good grades or getting material things to a quality of self-fulfillment. And that self-fulfillment coming from something that is good, not just for themselves, but for a greater good, whether it's those they care about, or their communities, or the world as a whole. Helen Keller, who was a deep thinker, who thought about the purpose of life, about the consequences of our actions, and who, of course, was creative and overcame tremendous difficulty. She said, true happiness is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. And I think if we look at our own experience, we can see that our happiest times are often spent either in service of another, or in companionship with another, or in communion with nature, or in communion with ourselves, allowing us to just be rather than to reach after an external object. That sense of perseverance, courage, and commitment. Giving our students guided questions where they do some mindfulness activity so they can rest in themselves, get in touch with their positivity, with their what's going on, what they're feeling, and then journaling about what they care about. What are the 3 things that they care most about and why? Letting them articulate. And often writing is a good medium after some mindfulness practice. Sitting in stillness can be hard for students to speak afterwards. They may feel a little blank, feel a little bit shifted out of their norm, and it's hard to articulate the words out loud. But letting them write often allows them to tap into a current of experience or emotion that they may not be used to accessing. When students are connected with a greater goal, when they stumble, it's easier for them to recover. When they don't have a greater goal, that stumble is often interpreted as my failing. I blew it. I'm not good enough. I'll never get this. But when that stumble is part of a pathway to a greater goal, it's like, oh, I didn't do that well there, but I have to keep going. I'm only on mile 6 and I've got more. So I'm just going to keep looking ahead and let that pull me. I'm going to learn from my mistakes, so when I stumble, I won't fall all the way. I'll catch myself and keep going. Having that greater goal helps one see the roadblocks or the hurdles as opportunities to learn, as opportunities to strengthen, as opportunities to grow. It also helps keep that stress of achievement or over-scheduling or over-competition in abeyance, because when the goal is big and it's going to be our life's work to get there, to build a loving family, to achieve competence and success in our field, we know that this is going to be a matter of years or decades. And so we pace ourselves. And for students to learn to pace themselves towards a larger goal while they're in their formative years is really, really positive. It builds a foundation for their young adulthood when pressures of creating a family, raising a young family and working and establishing themselves may be a little much. Having that long-term goal allows for that pacing, and it allows for a sense that our busyness is not to get to the end of the list. It's not just to be busy for the sake of busyness. It's not just to get a lot done. It's not just to come to the end of the week and say, wow, I did X, Y, and Z and Q, P, and R. It's important to feel a sense of heading towards something that brings meaning, not just an itemized list. Computer algorithms accomplish a lot, but one algorithm or another algorithm are clicking off zeros and ones. They're not adding to our human capacity to interpret the world, to express compassion, to feel a depth of insight, to feel our own capacities for understanding, interpreting, and making wise decisions to be developing. Henry David Thoreau, the transcendentalist who was eminently pragmatic in many ways in his mystical outlook, he said, "It's not enough to be industrious, so are the ants. What are you industrious about?" I think our contemporary culture could do well to really reflect on that. In this cult of busyness, we're trained to value productivity and output by volume more than by quality. So let's not pride our accomplishment the way that Henry Ford prided his conveyor belts, his automated car production. What are you industrious about? The ants are industrious. Let us be industrious about something worthwhile, and let's extend that sense and value, impart that to our youth, so that our youth are learning to find meaning and human sense of purpose and support and love and care in everything they do. So they're constantly fulfilling their reserves with experiences that bring value and joy and purpose. And that's what's going to give them the wherewithal to work towards their own fulfillment, which is defined by fulfillment in a larger context, towards a greater good. Purpose is going to take time and effort to cultivate. Mindfulness practice really helps students develop that sense of patience. We don't immediately get good at resting in the quality of being aware and letting the thoughts that come and go in our minds arise and pass away. We don't immediately get good at that. Or we might have beginner's luck and slip into that sense of peace and ease. And then we start feeling the busyness of mind, and we don't have the skills yet to understand, to penetrate, to see through, and to maintain our inner strength in the face of a busy mind. Mindfulness practice helps students learn to be patient with that and to see results over time, to experience the growth of their own muscle of choice over what they're going to be swayed by in their own minds. And when you develop that ability to choose and that sense of choice over what happens in your mind, that's a moment of real accomplishment for a teen. They feel so empowered, so free, so victorious, in a way that's inclusive, not over other people, not by competing with other people, not by controlling other people, but by feeling that they have choice over what thoughts they're going to pay attention to, how they're going to interpret them, and how stable they're going to be, where they're going to rest in themselves as they watch this parade, this movie of their minds in front of them. When we support our students to pay attention to purpose and to be patient in defining their sense of adherence to a higher goal, we're really preparing them for a healthy life. There was a large 2014 study by Patrick Hill and Nicholas Turiano that linked purpose, a sense of purpose greater than oneself, to various health outcomes. So everything from having better sleep to experiencing fewer strokes and heart attacks, to a lower risk for dementia, disability, or premature death. These are significant. Part of the sense of purpose helps individuals combat the negative effects of stress, the disruptive experience of anxiety, of depression, of loss, of ability to find the next step. A sense of purpose also helps an individual take better care of themselves. And for teens, this is, again, it's a great counter weight towards the pull to risky and dangerous activity, alcohol, drugs, promiscuous sexual engagement. Because you have a greater purpose and you're looking towards the future and you feel connected to whether it's your immediate circles, your family, your neighborhood, or your world, you embrace positive health activities. As you get older, you embrace preventative health services, and that's partly why that sense of purpose can be linked to these long-term improved health outcomes. Because you're taking care of yourself for the sake of something larger than just yourself. When students practice mindfulness, they say things like, and these are examples from some of my students this year, earlier this year, this fall, where they said things like, when they practiced mindfulness, when they learned these inner strength tools, they said things like, instead of ignoring stress and conflicting things, I've learned there are better ways to deal with it. Instead of ignoring stress and conflicting things, I've learned there are better ways to deal with it. And you can see how, okay, if you're not ignoring stress, you're not ignoring conflicts, you're not ignoring your problems, you're finding positive solutions, you're going to be cultivating a strong foundation that's going to lead you towards better well-being, both physical and mental and emotional. They said mindfulness, taking the time to be kind to others, makes your life better. extending our sense of care for other people, taking the time for that, makes our own lives better. That sense of greater purpose, greater connection, a reason to be, makes our own life better. Another student said, mindfulness helped me realize when I make a mistake, it's not the end. I can pick myself up and keep going. That the mindfulness practice helps students see their own experience in light of a larger goal, of our human development, our cultivation of our higher capacities. And so then we make mistakes, we pick ourselves up, we learn from them, we keep going. These are real practical ways that mindfulness supports students' sense of well-being. Another student said, I have a lot of hardships in my family and stuff that's helped make me feel like I'm still okay. Mindfulness helps students see objectively difficult circumstances for what they are, doesn't whitewash them, but it doesn't make these, it helps students have this distance so that those negative circumstances or hard circumstances or problems don't mean that there's something wrong with them. It just means these are hardships. Poverty, illness, a loss of somebody dear, violence in the neighborhood. These are hardships. Mindfulness doesn't sugarcoat them. But just because one experiences difficulty in one's life doesn't mean that one is inadequate, damaged, or not good enough. And that's where connecting mindfulness, connecting that sense of purpose, brings the real fruits of mindfulness to the forefront. So students they can give you answers like that. What's mindfulness to you? How's it helped you? Always connected to this sense of deeper well-being. They may come to it on their own, but we also, when we present mindfulness in the classroom, we need to connect that for our students. And whether we're teaching algebra or chemistry or a foreign language, we can build these moments of meaning making into them. And using mindfulness in the broadest sense of the term, helping students become aware of meaning making in everything they do. How is understanding how the world works through geometry or physics? How's understanding that creating meaning in their lives? How is being able to lean into these of mindful awareness to bear? We can do that by noticing our own responses and reactions to what we're learning. So we're not learning in a vacuum. We're not learning to a test. We're learning to develop ourselves. We're learning out of our own curiosity to uncover new possibilities, positive interrelationships, or understanding hurts and harms that have happened in a context where we are committed to embodying the solution. So we can imbue any subject that we're teaching with mindful awareness, with how the youth, the student, is interacting with the knowledge being presented, and with how the knowledge being presented and understanding and engaging with it leads to a greater sense of meaning and purpose. So let's take a moment to do a final guided practice using the open awareness practice and connecting it with purpose. So allow yourself to rest. Allow your attention to soften. Let the thoughts settle into the background, allowing your own experience of being aware of the room you're in, whatever your hands are touching, whatever you're sitting on, the temperature on your skin, the muscles of your face. Allowing yourself to put your attention on being aware of what you're noticing rather than on the content of what you're noticing. And as you let your field of awareness expand, resting in that quality of being aware, allow yourself to feel into and intuit that which is important to you, that which is closest to your heart, that sense of meaning and purpose and direction in your own life. Let yourself stay with that softly. It can be wordless. It can be a feeling or a knowing or a joy or a love. And as that sense of meaning and purpose becomes stronger in your field of awareness, imagine it's like a dye, a drop of dye dripped into a glass of water. That meaning and purpose is spreading throughout your entire field of consciousness, imbuing everything you're aware of with directionality and purpose and greater good. Now let's bring your attention back, becoming more aware of the room you're in, the objects in the room around you, without losing touch with that sense of fullness of heart and calmness of being. Thank you so much. Till next time, be well. Thank you for listening to The Conscious Classroom. I'm your host, Amy Edelstein. Please check out the show notes on innerstrengthfoundation.net for links and more information. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend and pass the love on. See you next time.